I used to work in retail years ago, and it was before, everybody was walking around with a cell phone and a camera in their pocket and stuff. And these days, I just tell people, take a picture, put it in one of your libraries in your camera, and just save a picture of it, and that way you have a reference for it.
Yeah, I will stand next to people for like 5 minutes while they scroll through and trying to find a picture of a wine label from 2015 or something, and I just kind of stand there politely, like don't look at their phone, just stand next to them. All right. So that happens.
Now that we bashed on all of your half your retail customers out there.
Yeah.
Nah, it's all. Morning, Jim.
Morning.
How are you?
All right. I am good. I'm good.
Excellent. All right. Fresh coffee. Thanks for coming out this morning. This is Jim Kreuger. Jim works at a local wine shop called the Wise Old Dog, and he's also been a student of New England Wine Academy and going through levels 2 and 3 with WSET. Yeah. So I guess the point of coming today and kind of talking a little bit about your experience with not only WSET but how it kind of fits in with your work is kind of where we're going to go today. So why don't you just kind of tell us a little bit about kind of yourself, your background, your interest in wine and things like that.
Say I'm Jim. So basically my background in wine, it's not very expansive, and I really got into the wine business just by working at the Wise Old Dog. I had no prior knowledge of wine, really. I mean, I knew the broad strokes, but I could not tell you what a Pinot Noir was like or anything. I got the job in 2020 after college. I just needed something to do, and it was COVID, and I ended up really liking it. And I've, there wasn't really any big thing. I've just kind of really got into it, and then, didn't really want to do anything else at a certain point in the time being, and the Wise Old Dog was at a point where it was growing and opening up a new store. So the idea of that really was attractive to me. And then WSET was just something that my boss and the owner of the store, Jacob, wanted us to all do while we expanded, and because we're at a time where Jacob and Thomas can't really be the guys. They can't be everywhere, and they can't be helping everyone.
And your customer base has kind of grown, especially with the new stores and everything.
So it's we just can't really rely on the two of them to recommend wine for everyone. Right. So I think WSET was very helpful for me, coming from a real place of not really knowing too much.
Let's back up just for a second, because like you said, you're just a couple years out of college right now. So relatively young guy. Yeah. Had you had, or was, kind of growing up, was there any kind of wine culture in your family or whatnot, to anything beyond sort of the normal drinking wine or whatever?
Not really. I mean, they drank wine on occasion, but it was never anything.
Nobody's paying attention to it, geeking out over.
No, not at all. Not at all. It was just kind of there on the table, and and it was a lot of buying wine at Costco and stuff like that, and so there wasn't really any knowledge of it, and I didn't really
just whatever tasted good kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
What kind of things do your parents like to drink? Your family?
Well, I think it's changed now a little bit, but
yeah, they have an inside track now.
I mean, there was a lot of Kirkland Signature Malbec,
which is not a bad wine.
Yeah, and Bogle Vineyards Cabernet and stuff like that. But there really wasn't anything.
Kind of standard stuff.
Kind of the standard stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't really grow up with any interest in wine, I guess.
Yeah.
It kind of fit in late. Once I got the job at the Wise Old Dog, I kind of realized it was a good thing for me, because I really like traveling and I like geography, and I'm really good with just random facts. So wine is very helpful for that, because it's a lot of it's just south of this town and it's on a hill, and and it's important because the wind blows in this direction, whatever it may be,
soil types, etc.
Yeah, and different kind of cultural anthropological things that go into wine was something I was kind of already preset to like and find interesting.
Yeah.
And I just kind of needed, something there because, there really wasn't a culture of like, thinking about wine or just having it on the table and like, this is nice. And,
a lot of people out there don't necessarily grow up with a
Yeah.
direction unless you're going to be like, unless you're somebody who grows up like in a wine family that owns a vineyard or something. You don't necessarily have that sort of direction. So I was kind of the same way. I mean, my mom doesn't really drink. My dad had, a regular interest in wine, always had some wine around, but I never paid attention too much to it. So, I kind of fell into it a little bit, sort of like maybe what you did after college and kind of found my way in the wine industry. So, so you get to Wise Old Dog, you're stocking shelves, loading the cooler, taking in orders, all that kind of stuff. On those early days, and I understand some of that was kind of during COVID, so you didn't really have a lot of, customers coming through the door necessarily. But, so you went about a year and a half ago, you went through, or about a year ago, you went through WSET, got through level 3 last summer. What kind of difference do you kind of see today in your approach to selling, working on the floor, helping customers find the selections that they're looking for versus maybe a year ago where you were at?
Yeah, I think it definitely fast tracked my knowledge because prior to WSET, I was on a pace of learning. I was stocking shelves and such, but I kind of realized,
there's a lot here.
Yeah, pretty quickly, it was a lot more fun to help people buy wine than to stock shelves. So I wanted to do that, and it really kind of started with, I wouldn't say me making stuff up, but me, pretty much, and kind of listening to what Thomas and Jacob had to say and like eavesdropping on what they said, and maybe I'd have like a bottle of wine a week that I'd buy, and it'd usually be pretty cheap, and I could say something about that. So there was like a slow growth of me learning a little bit at a time, and then I started with the catalog, writing the catalog because I got a degree in journalism, and Jacob knew that and kind of had always wanted to make a catalog, so here I was, and it was a really good thing for me to do. And in the early days, I basically Jacob would give me wines to choose for the catalog, and I would basically just read articles. I wouldn't really know what any of it meant, what it meant to like go, to for example, see oak aging for, like a year and 50% new oak and 50% first and second through fourth use, barrels, whatever it may be. Through WSET, that really, really accelerated. I think I got a lot more of a more neutral and about as objective as you can be, I guess, education on wine. So it was a bit more valuable for me to get an understanding of what essentially just what everything was, and it was a lot easier for me to describe things, and it wasn't mainly just this wine came in and this is cool and we all like it. It was more, understanding climate and understanding aspects and
building a knowledge of why a wine tastes, what's in the glass basically, and why it's, this Chardonnay is different than this Chardonnay because they come from different spots.
And when I learned more about that, I was able to look at the store in a more confident way of if someone was looking to buy something, I could, even if I hadn't tried it or gotten like a sit down on it from either Jacob or Thomas, I could know to a certain degree what that wine was all about. So it really allowed me to help people a lot more, and it gave me just a lot more knowledge and a lot more info that was just really not there for me, and I think what would have probably come about over a much longer period of time, I was able to learn in a few months. And then writing the catalog, it was just so much more helpful because I could now read a text sheet and really know what it all meant and why certain aspects of the wine are unique or special, and that really, really helped.
I like what you just said a minute ago about building that confidence coming from, certainly at a young age, no one's expecting you to have a super massive amount of experience. And just so just so anybody who's not familiar or might be looking outside of our area, Jacob is the owner of the store and Thomas is the GM. These guys have been building the store and actually have added a second one this year. Really kind of focused on, not really the big brands. They're focusing on wines that come from key small producers that are often hands-on. They're totally committed to their productions, using natural techniques or craft type techniques, I guess you would call it, and you're not really. It's not that they won't sell you the big brands; they just don't stock them on a regular basis. They'd rather focus on a little bit more interest factor kind of wines from different places, different varietals, things like that. So great opportunity to learn across a broad spectrum, but not necessarily focused on key brands and varietals and things like that. So it's a good opportunity for someone like yourself, I think, to get some base. But you still, going outside of those like half a dozen common brands or common varietals that we would see going into a Costco or a bigger box store type setting. You definitely, that store is designed to guide people towards something new, something different, something they haven't probably experienced. So a really good opportunity, I think, to kind of taste across a broad spectrum, but needing a base for that, which is kind of what you described.
Yeah, and another big thing is, in the kind of similar way, both Jacob and Thomas, I think Jacob had a little bit of knowledge of wine before, but not a ton, and Thomas didn't really have any. So they kind of started out where I started, and they both, have been there for Jacob now a decade, Thomas almost a decade. And through those years and years had built up a vast knowledge from tasting and
well, that's the nice thing about that store is the opportunity that the kind of sales people and the companies that they work with provide you that opportunity to taste across a broad spectrum of wine on a really regular basis, which is key.
Yeah. So they both through every week having sales reps come in and having tasting all these wines, pretty much probably almost every wine that is available in the market in Connecticut, and then some. They're able to kind of chisel out this identity for themselves, and I was essentially entering the store with that in place, and they were teaching me the things that they had learned, which was really, really helpful. But they were also kind of teaching me in this is not necessarily a bad thing, but it was biased education in a way, because they were showing me their favorites and what they like and what they bring into the store, which was helpful. But then to also get that a bit more general vast knowledge of wines from Australia, which we don't sell a ton of, or wines from the New World, wines from Portugal, wines from Hungary, things that dessert wines, things that they had not really focused on. It was really helpful for me to kind of get that knowledge and to learn that there is a lot more out there in a way.
Yeah, you use that exposure that they gave you as a springboard to kind of start developing your own pattern and your own focus. That's cool. So now you're about a year on with WCT. You're writing a newsletter. How do you really kind of see the next evolutionary step in your wine knowledge and also maybe spirits knowledge and things like that? How do you see that progressing? Where are you going with it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean,
asking as a dad.
Yeah, I guess I'd be lying if I said I wasn't planning for the future, but in a way I'm very content where I am at the present moment. There's a lot of things I think I could do. When I did WSET 3, I definitely was like, okay, time for a break from the learning. But I, obviously the diploma is there as an option. So we'll see, if I want to do that. Obviously that's a much bigger time commitment. But I'm not sure. And I think another really good thing for me was that I essentially came into the wine business with, no real prior knowledge. And my resume, didn't really have anything in the wine world. So having WSET 3 on that resume, certainly helps in my position, and I think opens up a lot of doors for me, because I can't say, I ran a wine shop for 8 years or whatever. I don't really have the connections in the wine world, just from the fact that I'm very new. But having this kind of accredited certification that kind of, essentially proves in a way that I have validates, that I know a certain amount of knowledge on wine is definitely helpful. But I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pressure you on like what's your future plans, what's your 5-year plan, Jim. No, I guess my thought was like, you got a journalism degree, you've now got a good base of knowledge in wine, you've got the WCT certificate, things like that. I mean, do you as Wise Old Dog expands and kind of keeps growing, you come out with your newsletters and things like that. I mean, today there's so much to supporting a store or a business such as this through good knowledge and getting that knowledge out in various ways, whether it's social media or print or whatnot. I mean, do you have any ideas of how that would actually kind of play out a little bit over the next few years and help you kind of grow, whether it's this job or something else?
Yeah, I think for me, just continuing to write is really fun and continuing to learn more about wine. And my new title is the education director. So that's something I think I'm going to want to get into a lot more, is teaching classes and doing kind of customized courses, tastings with people, sort of to my liking and to the things that I would find interesting. And that's the other really fun thing is, especially now, I have a lot more control over what I put in the catalogs and what I can kind of bring to the table. So for me, it's really fun to be able to do that now, and I can just focus on a region or focus on a certain kind of genre of wines. And I think also just the communication aspect of it and having kind of flavor notes that I can kind of get down. And that was another really helpful thing, was like the tasting notes was a really good, just like structured, aid for communication. Because I think that's what a lot of it is you kind of mainly need to communicate what you're getting there, and you need to communicate it in a fashion that other people will understand.
Like in my side of the world where I work kind of on my day job, so to speak, with the on-premise side, I don't necessarily teach my staff during staff trainings WCT methodology, but a lot of how I teach is definitely influenced by that and that structure, and my coaching to them is really kind of keep it simple, straightforward, don't overcomplicate it, but base it on this structure. And so I think going through that, what you're talking about is the SAT or the systematic approach to tasting, and just having a concise and uniform approach maybe to communicating that knowledge, which I know is helpful from my point of view. Yeah,
and there's a lot of weirdness out there, I think, with tasting notes. And
I always tell my guys, you're not Shakespeare. Don't try to write a sonnet about the wine. Just keep it simple.
Yeah, and it's definitely you get into this world, especially a lot of the write-ups on wine. When you try them, it can be really intimidating because you have these people come out and they're like, oh, this wine tastes of hood strawberries and wild persimmon and like the sea air from southern Argentina, and it's like, okay, this is a lot, like very specific, weird, eccentric
that none of us are going to experience.
Yeah, and then it's like red fruit, black fruit, and then you can kind of go from there, but it's a lot easier to.
Yeah, you got to bring it down to like a common language for folks, because we don't all travel to southern Argentina to experience the sea air.
Yeah.
And being able to stand in a store, coach somebody on a wine that you've experienced that's in your catalog or whatnot, or from a service point of view, standing tableside and being able to kind of confidently and concisely communicate like why this Chardonnay tastes different than that Chardonnay is so important, and in terms that people can understand. All right, what's the most common? We're gonna wrap this up now. What's the most common or interesting question you get from customers coming in shopping for wine? Or maybe let me phrase it. What's the weirdest question?
What's the weirdest question?
Not to put you on the spot.
There are a lot of weird questions.
I used to get the ones where it's like, you know, where's the wine with the least sulfites? Where's the one?
The sulfites thing is.
Does it still come up?
Yeah, it comes up a whole lot. Yeah. So sulfites are naturally occurring, and most people, unless you have an allergy, they don't give you a headache.
Right.
Which is, I think, something you can learn WSET.
I think it is.
Definitely, I think people are very perplexed. You know, the vegan wine question is interesting, and yeah, once people learn why some wine isn't vegan, they you know, their reaction is a bit frightened.
Right. So what do you tell them? Why is a wine not vegan?
Wine is not vegan because they put egg yolks in the wine. I don't know. I don't really know how to cover that one in glossy English.
Yeah.
But
well, it's part of the
and it doesn't
finding process.
Yeah, the flavor doesn't taste like egg white. I guess.
No, they're not whipping eggs into it.
Yeah, they're not. What are some of them?
Like the strangest question you ever got? Or request?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, I'll just get some really, really like kind of juxtaposed questions. Like people are like, I want a really, you know, rich, you know, full-bodied, like, you know, muscadet or something. You know, or like, yeah, I don't know. You get like a lot of yeah, like I want a Cabernet with not a lot of tannin, and you're like, okay,
I don't get that.
I don't know what to sell you.
Let me show you Beaujolais.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing that we often joke about though is you get these people who come in, and you know, obviously there are certain misconceptions about wine, especially. I would say a lot of people they enter a certain level of knowledge where they get to a point where they feel like they have an understanding of wine that is very broad and a bit judgy. So you get people who think like all Chardonnay is bad or all Pinot Grigio is bad. And you'll have these people come in and they'll be like, oh, I hate Pinot Grigio, and then they'll be like, where's your Alsatian wines? You have a Pinot Gris, and I'm like, it's the same grape.
Right.
And there's some really good Italian ones that say Pinot Grigio that taste very similar. Or
just a little knowledge is too dangerous sometimes.
Yeah. Or I don't want to. Oh, this champagne has Chardonnay in it. Oh, I don't like Chardonnay.
Right.
And you're like, well, pretty much all. You know, so you definitely get those, which are kind of funny.
Do you ever get the question? I had this wine. It had a red label on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. You get plenty of. I had a wine. I'm sure it was. I got it from. I'll have people.
I'll recognize it when I see it.
I'll recognize it. That's all the time. And then you'll also get people that are absolutely certain that they got a wine at our store, and I'll look at they'll show me which one it is, and I'll be, you know, and I've worked there now for you know, they'll be like, oh, I came in a few weeks ago, and they'll show me the wine. I've worked there now, the Wieseldorf, for almost 2 years, and I'll see the wine. I'm like, but there's no way, you know, you bought this here, and like they'll be like, no, I bought it here, you know, and you just kind of don't know what to do because like you know what the wine is, and you know for a fact you've never bought it, you know, at the store, and you just don't know what to tell them because some people are so certain. Like, I bought this wine here, and I'm like, no.
Yeah. I used to work in retail years ago, and it was before, you know, everybody was walking around with a cell phone and a camera in their pocket and stuff. And these days, I just tell people, take a picture, put it in one of your libraries in your camera, and just save a picture of it, and that way you have a reference for it.
Yeah, I will stand next to people for like 5 minutes while they scroll through and trying to find a picture of a wine label from 2015 or something, and I just kind of stand there politely, like don't look at their phone, you know, just stand next to them. All right. So that happens.
Now that we've bashed on all of your, like half your retail customers out there.
Yeah.
Nah, it's all good. And I think what it goes to is showing that, you know, there's a lot of folks out there who shop for wine and you know, it's okay that they don't have like that knowledge base, but, you know, someone like you who can actually guide them is important, and having, whether it's WSET or another program and self-education, things like that, it's just, you know, having a little bit of an understanding of what is in the bottle, why it tastes the way it does, because it comes from a certain place or whatever the circumstance are is important, because, you know, working in an industry, ultimately our goal is to guide that customer, that guest towards a successful experience, and you can't really do that so much if you don't know it. Which you know, coming in as a college graduate, I think you said before, you know, it was not something that you were terribly confident in, but after a couple of years of education, you're much better.
Yeah, it was not, and I do like helping people, despite what I just said, and it's nice.
It's fun. It's like a game sometimes to try to hunt down the wine.
Yeah, and it's fun to kind of the more you know, and with the knowledge I've gained, it becomes a lot easier to understand why people might like something or why people might not have liked a wine. You know, so you can understand it if somebody likes a California Chardonnay or not a Chablis, or maybe they like the wine because it was unoaked and not oaked, and whatever it may be. The more I've done it and the more I've learned, it becomes a lot easier to help people out and get them to where they want to be, which is fun to do that with people. It's fun to kind of understand what people like and what people are into, so then you can help people with a lot more confidence and
well, then they come back because they trust you, and once you've made that successful connection, they're more willing, in my experience at least, they're more willing to take your suggestion on another varietal or another region or something, and maybe kind of continue down that path of experimentation and whatnot. So it's always fun, and that's how successful business is going to build up a good clientele base, which is what you guys have certainly done over the last, well, it's what Jacob and Thomas have been doing for years, and you over the last couple of years as part of that team. So all right, cool. Well, we can go back to enjoying our coffee now. I appreciate you coming out and giving us your insights.
No problem.
Cheers.
Thanks.